want to consider mobile wallet technologies. We need to look at how we use this to bolster live events. We're also looking at loyalty programs. There's just literally tons and tons of different applications here, and so we're looking at all of them in small pilot programs in various places around the country to say, hey, let's try this here in 50 restaurants in Des Moines and see if that works. Let's try it in 100 restaurants in New York and see what that works. So that ultimately we're going to have a nice suite of different ways to be able to engage with people. So a couple more tips for getting started. Pilot and pilot again. I'm a big believer in pilot programs, partially because if they crash, you can say, oh, you know what, that was a pilot program. It wasn't really that important. You want to be quick. I think having a one-day event as really literally a proof of concept for us worked really, really well. Also for McDonald's, speed and quality and consistency is inherent to our brand, so we need something that's very, very fast. This actually is part of the challenge we have too, because we have 14,000 restaurants around the United States, 300,000 people who work at those restaurants. To come up and show your phone to someone behind the counter to redeem a special doesn't necessarily work that well. So that's something we need to figure out is if we offer a special, what is the redemption process and how we make it seamless? Because again, if you hand your phone to the person behind the counter and they don't know, it's a bad experience for you as a customer. Plus, if there's 5 people online and the person has to ask the manager, then the speed of the operation is going to be effective. Be cheap. Yes, I work for a big brand, but as most people who work in social media, your budget is probably begged, borrowed, and stolen from other places. So we need to find ways to be cheap. Also, if it had cost us $50,000 to do a pilot program in the mobile social area, that doesn't really scale very, very well. Be simple. We reward people for checking in on one day. That was a very simple thing. We want to be simple as much as possible because, again, one thing that we want to be conscious of in terms of the speed for the experience when you're in the restaurant is if you've got to fumble through too much, you've got to do too much on your phone, your adoption rate will obviously go down. Also, it doesn't hurt to be stealth. I was a couple weeks in, so I didn't know everybody that I needed to get approval for this project, which was a good thing. So, again, pilot programs can fly under the radar, so try to use that to your advantage when you're starting out. And measurements. This is not just a mobile thing, but it applies to all social media. Don't rest on the old metrics. I'll say again and again that the value of check-in is not the same as a one impression from an admin. Because not only is that person coming and saying, hey, I'm here at your store, in your location, at your restaurant, they're saying that, they're sharing it with their entire social graph. They're saying that, they're proclaiming it to all their friends as well. So the weight underneath that check-in or adding a tip needs to be considered as well. You also want to be appropriate to the program. For our pilot, we were looking at how many people do we get to check in. For another program, we may want to say how many people do we get to buy a Big Mac, or how many people do we get to buy our oatmeal when that comes out in January. You also want to tie those metrics back to the strategies. If your strategy is we want people to buy oatmeal, then we need to make sure that our metrics are accounting for that. And again, just look beyond the eyeball. So what are people doing when they're here, and how are we measuring that in a way that's commensurate to the experience?